And now for something that I know many of you have been waiting for the CXO panel discussion, the rise of the machines. What does it mean for our workforce? I know many of you might have questions post our panel discussions. As in the morning, we follow the order of the mic the same way. Ladies and gents, do make note that we have placed the microphones on the center aisle. Post the panel discussion, should you have any questions for our panelists, feel free to approach the mic and ask away your questions. Now, ladies and gents, without any further ado, I present to you your panelists, starting off with our moderator, Geetha, Kannan, Managing Director, AnitaB.org, India. Can we have you on stage, ma'am? You're already on stage. Joining Ms. Geetha, can I have Anant Maheshwari, President, Microsoft Corporation, India Private Limited. Thank you for joining us here today. We have Anu Acharya, CEO, Maymygenome. Can we have you on stage, please? We have Dhilip Khandelwal, Executive Vice President and Head of Enterprise Cloud Services, SAP SE, and Managing Director, SAP Labs India. And our final panelist, we have Banerjee, the co-founder and CEO of Apartment Adda. Geetha, the floor is yours.
Yeah, before you switch on my mic, how much time do we have? Because we can't see the panel. Okay, sure. Okay, so thank you for this lazy afternoon, eating nice food and then coming here. And it's truly the rise of the machines that's happening. And can anyone who has not used AI in their life put their hands up? Oh, wow, I have such a knowledgeable crowd, huh? I'd like to, when we had Google Maps introduced for the first time, my driver was like, he's very conscious. He says, how does that lady sitting inside the phone know that I have to turn left and right? That means she's looking at me from somewhere. Where is she looking at me from? And he was very concerned and very, very worried with the fact that, you know, and of course, it's a lady looking at him. That's even worse, right? So he says, how does she know that I am exactly on this road? So technology has actually, at that time, was scaring all of us with all the AI stuff that they were doing. And we thought it was relevant to bring this kind of topic for the panel discussion, mainly because there are 4 things that are happening exactly as of today. If you look at it, you know, I mean, I need not tell this to you as an audience, but just to encapsulate and show how knowledgeable I am, right? I have to say all this, right? The computer processing power is doubling every 2 years. The data that's being thrown at us is doubling every year, right? The funding that's going into AI is doubling every two years. And then we now have 50 years of AI research data available, and that means our algorithms are getting better and better. And you can see that. I mean, we have people on the panel who you know, invented AI beyond what we're dreaming of. And they, I'm sure, have things that we don't know about also, right? And so it's in fact, and we're just calling it scary technology, mainly because we don't know what's happening. And it's so new to us that we're really saying, is it of concern to me that, you know, all of us are being watched all the time? We have somebody to assist us all the time. Where is me in this whole phase? So that's why we thought we'll talk a little about what's happening in the tech space in terms of AI, then go down to saying, how does it affect us as the technology workforce in this country? And finally come to that critical question, how does it affect me as a woman if all this is happening around me? I'd like each of the panelists, starting from my right, to introduce themselves with, I'm going to hold you to it because I'm responsible for the time, your name and which organization you represent and your designation. We don't want to know what you do. But you also have to tell us, what is the scariest technology that you've read about or you've used? And it doesn't have to be from your own organizations. If you want, you can feel free to share it. But so we start with you, Anant.
So you want the introduction and the scariest technology?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Anant Maheshwari. I'm president for Microsoft India. And I was just thinking about this scariest technology. I think it happened to me about 3 or 4 years back. I was a big proponent until then. Search, online search is a fantastic thing. It just helps us to do so much things, so much better. And then my son discovered search, online search. I realized at that point in time when my son discovered online search, he was about 10 years at that point, he suddenly saw diminishing value of what I could teach him. And he figured out that he could get better answers on search than he could get from me. And that just brought me to that point to say, listen, this is not so good. I need to continue to build my equation with my son. And the good part of that is I think today we can really talk about the right things, and we are not talking about just something that he wants to know. So to me, it was scary in the beginning, but it's turned out to be pretty good now.
I'm Anu Acharya. I'm the CEO and founder of Maymygenome. I think more people know it by Genome Patri. The scariest technology that I think that is coming in our future very soon is a technology called CRISPR, where we can actually edit genes. So you can imagine that anything that you are today, which is DNA passed on from your ancestors millions of years ago, but if today we have the ability to be able to change that at an embryo level, which means you're going to be able to change that for generations. So that can truly be, revolutionary and extraordinarily scary.
Wow. Dhilip.
Okay, so my name is Dhilip Khandelwal. I'm the MD for SAP Labs in India, and I'm also the president for the enterprise cloud business for SAP. Actually, I don't believe in being scared. I'm not afraid of anyone. I genuinely feel that the usability of the technology, and in that sense, mobile for me is the biggest change which has happened. I can do whatever I want, everything on the mobile, and I think that is the biggest thing which has happened. If you want to just critically know what is the scariest thing inside the mobile, my wife can track where I am, and that's the biggest problem I see.
Great. So hi, this is San, and I'm co-founder and CEO of Apartment Adda. And Apartment Adda is like a micro, nano SAP for apartment complexes. I hope SAP doesn't get in there, so please don't. And what scares me, even I don't want to admit that any technology scares me, right? So, but I think what really scares me is probably scares all of us. That's probably a self-driving car, maybe in Bangalore, Chennai highway, so you can imagine. So yeah, that future scares me.
Well, it seems like equally divided. My left is not scared and my right does think there is scary technology. It was not deliberate, I can tell you that. But there's people like Stephen Hawking and Elon Musk who said that actually with AI and things like that, we're summoning the demon, and those demons are going to take over and the devil is going to rule the world. And there is that, and of course there's, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg and Professor Marsh and all those who are saying that no such thing would happen. But there are a lot of newspaper reports going out saying, there was a recent report in the Hindu that says in India, 67% of the jobs will get lost. And then in China, it's as high as 77%. And in the US, it's supposed to be about 35%. These are numbers being thrown at us. I don't know based on what statistics. But there is a fear that we are going to lose all our jobs because of this kind of new technology that's coming up like a wave. And we've been summoning that devil every time. So what would be your opinion, Anant, on how is that going to happen? Or do you think these are statistics that are just thrown at us?
So first up, I have to react to that one. I am in the Satya Nadella camp. I think if you just look at technology revolutions or industrial revolutions, it's very, very normal today to expect what will life be in future. But just look back at the third industrial revolution. We are in the fourth one right now. So just let's go back and look in the third one. That's when the microprocessor came. And at that time, everybody said, what will humans do? Because this is more powerful than the human brain. And therefore, all jobs will go away with the microprocessor. A lot of us in this room have our jobs because of the microprocessor. If you go back to the revolution before that, when electricity came and manufacturing became very normal, that's the time that all the craftspeople said, this will ruin the world because all the crafts will go away. And again, humanity took a big step at that point in time. And the first industrial revolution, steam, and we started to move across geographies with the steam engine. So if you go back every industrial revolution, the fear is very, very normal. Rather than giving an answer which is, I think, more predictive of the future or any philosophy for today, I just point out to a movie that I saw, and it inspired me about how to think about this. It's a movie called Hidden Figures. It was at the Oscars recently, so if you haven't seen the movie, I'll strongly recommend the movie to you.
I didn't know he was promoting this, so
Yeah.
blank, blank, blank. Okay.
No, so I'll just talk about the movie because it's inspiring to go back and see that's when the first computer entered NASA. And 3 African American women, so there's all the biases that you can think of that were prevalent at that point in time, were in play. And these were mathematicians who were doing all the calculations to put the first man out in space. And how their jobs changed and how they could train that computer, which is program that computer, and help in putting that man out in space and bring their own personal capabilities. To me, that's the human ingenuity that we are facing right now with artificial intelligence. How do we really channel it to make our lives better and to create more jobs? And that answer is not obvious, like it wasn't at that point in time to those women. Their first reaction was, this is really bad. And by the end of it, all of those women went up to do some great stuff for NASA. So that's my example.
That actually is a brilliant movie that probably just aligns completely with what the panel is saying. So good, thank you for bringing that up. Do you feel the same way, San, that you think the jobs will not drop off?
See, job roles obviously will change, and it has to change in technologies. And I think that's what scares us is reskilling ourselves, right? Like today we are the champion of whatever technology domain we are in, and here comes artificial intelligence and machine learning, and it looks very different. But then for those of us who are excited and are truly engraved in technology, it's good for us because then it is something very new, and I believe it's very inclusive because AI truly, if we were to look at responsible AI, it has to bring in a lot of disciplines together. So just think about something as simple like we were talking about self-driving cars. So if you're thinking about a self-driving car, the amount of decision it has to make, right? It is not just simple. It has to take in a lot of some ethics, some legal, some moral aspects also, right? So suddenly you've got like probably lawyers sitting right next to you to build something that you're doing. You've got business ethics or rather generally ethics champions sitting next to you building something. So I find it's very exciting. Yes, it is painful to probably reskill ourselves from something we are very good at to something that's new and upcoming. But it's not very immediate, it's something that we know, but yes, I think it is happening. Just think about, my friend in IBM was telling that 1/3 of the engineering team is on IBM Watson. So, I don't think that jobs are reducing, the job roles are changing.
Yeah, but I'm going to ask you this, Dhilip, is that, I mean, it's easy to say we just have to reskill ourselves. I mean, yeah. But it looks like it's not the blue collar, but the white collar kind of jobs that are going. And in India, we've been struggling to just reskill, I mean, just to get the basic people to just join our organizations and get the right talent. So how would all this AI and wiping out jobs and the need for reskilling, I mean, is there anything that you can comment on?
Let me start with a generic comment. I think there's an artificial intelligence, there's an artificial thing in it, right? And the real intelligence will always be human. And there is an artificial part to it. So you need to be very clear that human and the jobs and what they're going to do in future will always remain. It will all evolve over a period of time. When you talk about the skilling, I think the bigger problem today is the way the technology evolves. I think it is in the past is to take 5 years, 10 years, and the people can reskill the things and all those things. Today it happens in 6 months. Tomorrow it will happen in a week time. and maybe 15 years down the line, it will happen every day. The biggest thing that needs to be very clear is it needs to happen in the mind of the people and the culture they put in. I think if as an organization is able to create that culture that I am going to be in a new culture, whatever technology comes in, and I'm able to adapt and change as per the need, I think this all will change. I think we are far more intelligent compared to the technology which brings in. I think for some people it will take 2 days, some people it will make 5 days. But in the end, people learn and adapt and do it faster. So it is all about in the mind, and that cultural aspect needs to go into the business as well as the organization which are doing. And I think that's where the effort should go in. It is not about this technology or that technology. It is about the mindset which goes in that today it is this, tomorrow it is going to be that, and I'm open for that, and I'm going to be ready for that.
Yeah, that's good. And I'd like to ask you, because of the people sitting here, you are actually in some, actually in a Hollywood horror movie, because what work you do is kind of, it's kind of mind-boggling, because it's like if I want to get married, I can probably come to you and say, that person's gene pool and mine, I mean, does it sync up? So instead of horoscopes, we're probably going into genoscopes or something like that.
Genome Patri.
What is it called?
Genome Patri.
Okay, she has a word for it, God help us. So, but, Dhilip was saying, that it's the intelligence of the mind that is thing. So would you agree with that statement that some things will not happen just like that and we will not be overtaken by AI itself? Because in a way, sometimes your field looks like that it would take over our thinking.
I don't think it'll completely take over. So I think I have a completely different, slightly different take on what everybody else has been saying, right? I want to contest, why would everybody need to have jobs in the first place? If assuming that we get to a point where we are able to conserve our resources, we are able to conserve everything that we want for normal humans to live, why can't there be some people who are just thinkers? Why can't there be some people who are doing nothing, right? So that is one thing. But and the other thing is that it is true that for many of us who are sitting here, we can reskill ourselves very easily, right? It's a question of we are already educated, we get to that point. But for a lot of people who are doing blue collar jobs, people who are not just people who are actually doing menial jobs, for them it is going to be the hardest. And I think that as governments, as policies, I think that should be the focus of whoever is going to be doing that when it comes to being able to, when we come to the point where we all live in a West world fantasy. That means, we won't know who the robot is and who the human is, right? But I really think that there is, at least in the field of genomics and medicine where we are, what we are trying to do is not necessarily take away jobs. It is about being able to give that ability to the consumer to be able to make that decision based on the data. So it's not that you are taking away jobs from anyone. What you're doing is you're empowering a physician, you're empowering a consumer to be able to take more valid decisions. But there will always be people whose jobs will be taken. But unless there is a way to be able to find them the right jobs, I think if we can't figure out how to reskill them, there needs to be some way of them just being able to relax.
Yeah, so I hear the common thread running here that we all have to reskill. I think I'm dead. I'm not going to get a job hereafter. But anyway, so we're going to reskill and all that. So with the struggle that we face, trying to find the right fit between jobs and us as people from the outside, how do you think that people in this audience, if you have words of advice that you can give them as to say, what can they preempt and work on now so that they won't be? Because today, if you're like even saying, I'll have a career and X, by the time you reach there, it's all gone. I mean, there's no such thing as like you're talking about self-driving cars. I mean, it may not even be anything worth talking about another 5 years later, because either it's trashed the whole idea, which happens very often, or, we'd have self-driving cars in Bangalore. So, if you have any, and I would leave it to the floor to answer.
So what I have found, that it's just my personal experience, what makes us technology proof is probably to get depth in the particular field. Technology is at the end of the day going to be a tool to make X, Y, Z better. Driving, which was done whichever way before is being done today differently, tomorrow it's going to be different. So somebody who knows the automobile industry very well, the field very well, it'll be relatively easy to, it is not about being a technologist, it is about knowing the use of technology for the particular subject matter area or the field, right? So I found that strategy quite bulletproof, where you know your subject matter, or rather the business application, or whatever is the application of the technology, and the technology will keep changing, but you know that the end user so well, and everyone involved in that ecosystem so well, that moving from one technology to another is not that painful, is my experience.
Would Anant agree?
I think I'll just, I try to draw simple lessons from life. And I look at how my mother uses technology today. Nobody ever trained her. She went through her life, through most of her life, without a lot of the stuff that we use today. She's picked it up, and her coaches are her grandkids. Because her grandkids teach her more about technology than I can. I will lose patience, but the grandkids will very quickly get her up the learning curve. That's a life skill. And I think to all of us in our work lives, we need to bring that life skill of learning into our work lives. And if you have that learning growth mindset continuously, wherein you are able to try to figure out what is it that you're uncomfortable about and you'd like to learn more, just that mindset will enable us. So I would not talk about it as a hard skill. I think it's a really soft skill mindset that will help us.
So, I mean, I know SAP is doing it. I mean, do you want to comment on it?
I completely agree with Anant on this. I think, as I said to you, I think...
Are men banding together here?
It is, no. I think it is just got to do with pure mindset. Forget what will come. It will keep on coming. I think as long as you have a very clear mindset on that you can change and you will adapt to the situation, I think it will all work.
Do you have any thoughts, Kannan?
Yeah, I would say do a DNA test, find out what you're good at, and then focus on that. But really, I think one of the areas that, and I think I agree with what Anant said, but in order to get to that mindset, I think it is important that we all continuously read on topics that we are not comfortable with. And I think that's where, your thought process of saying, where do I innovate from, where do I learn something new from, comes from. So whether, if you're doing today, if you're working on whatever you're working on today, let's say you pick up a poetry book and read, or you pick up, something else that you are not necessarily trained for, I think that will allow you to start drawing things and learning things in your normal day-to-day life. So I would say that, for me, it is about being able to do things that you're uncomfortable with, to make sure that you are constantly learning every day.
So two things are coming out. One is it's life skills, and one is it's something we are uncomfortable with. So how will this affect the women in the workforce? Now, I'm specifically looking at SAP for the answer, because you do a lot of stuff that's focused on diversity, and how do you think that will change with all this kind of technology landscape changing?
So I think there are a lot of women in this hall, and I think there is a general perception that the AI would have a maximum impact on the woman's job than a man's job. There are a lot of studies which says it, and I completely disagree with this. Because I genuinely feel as a woman, and more specifically take an example of my wife, I think women by nature, compared to men, are more multitasking. Everybody knows it. They are able to adapt it far more faster than what we are. We might be good in certain technology, but they're able to adapt things faster. They're able to do multiple things at the same time in a far better way. So I think the first thing you need to be very clear is if there is an impact, which I disagree on that impact, but if there is an impact, it is not going to be on women, it is going to be on men. That's the first one. The second one is on a diversity front. I think the whole question of diversity I think a lot of organizations take it in a very different way. They look for more like certain kind of recognitions. If you do diversity, you get this recognition. I think you need to get away from this whole recognition piece and move into direction of more making sense that I'm going to be trusting you, and I'm going to be respecting you. And that whole respect, if it comes in, whether you use the diversity, or you use in terms of gender, whether you use in terms of the cultural, you use in terms of geographical, I think if you get a feeling, the whole notion of diversity around respect, I think it's far more different than you are looking as an organization for pure recognitions. And I think if you do all the activities, that's what we try to do, around giving respect to the people who are coming from the different culture, the different geographical areas. If you get them on the table, I think you create that impact, and which we generally derived out of as being more innovative, and you start creating more beautiful products out of it.
Do you have any different thinking from a Microsoft perspective or an Anand perspective?
Again, I think first let me just talk about the way at least I have observed that in Microsoft. It's a combination of what you do from intentionality. So what's your intention? What's the purpose? Why you're doing it? And that's really about the whole the notion towards diversity and inclusion. But it's a lot to do about behavior. You may have a lot of intentionality, but behaviors are our built-in biases that play out all the time. And you may be saying the right thing, but you may be saying it absolutely the wrong way. It's both that combine to come together. And I think the behavior aspect is what we need to focus a lot more on, because that's what goes and affects many a time what even the intentions are for most people. I'll give you a very simple example. I've used it in my personal work life a lot, because it's at the core of the intention of diversity and inclusion. There's a rule that the people who work around me know, that I just cannot see the word sir or ma'am being used around. Which is, if you look at it, at least in India, we are a very hierarchical society. And we bring those hierarchies into the workplace. And it's very natural for us to then say that exactly the same way in the workplace, sir or ma'am. So there are two things there that I'm trying to work on there. First, just the use of the word sir and that equation that you set up with an individual creates a slope of ideas where it's not equal. So it's assumed that the person who's senior has better ideas than the person who's not. And I think you equate, and there's diversity and inclusion on ideas. And the second piece, which is a little more subtle on that, is I've observed, at least, I don't know if any of you have, the same person who may call a senior male sir doesn't use the word ma'am that often. And therefore, you're again working on something which is very, very subtle there. They might use the first name for the woman. Same position in the organization. So it's really then you're working on behavior. And I found it really difficult in a conversation at times. This person is so used to saying sir to me, they just can't bring themselves to take my name. So it's really coaching on that to say, get that out of your mind. You can easily have that conversation with me. And once that happens, the conversation changes. The person becomes more relaxed. It's just a different conversation. So it's about behavior.
Thank you, sir.
Can't use this.
Yeah, he's not calling me ma'am, by the way. But how do you think we coincidentally have two women entrepreneurs. How do you think that will affect the way y'all work now? Do you think it'll change the way you work now? Do you have to worry more about diversity because of all this change and the skilling and the scariness of it all, and there won't be women in it? Or what's going to happen?
So Geetha, I think there was a hidden fact in your question that you asked about reskilling and gender. And I beg to differ from you, Dhilip, that men are probably equally impacted or probably impacted more. Women are actually impacted more when it comes to staying up with technology, because in the prime lifetime of a typical woman techie, there are certain absent time that happens from work, typically due to childbirth, and that often takes us away from the technology loop. And since technology keeps changing so fast, a lot of women get this inferiority complex that I've fallen behind, right? So that is a real problem. Now, I know that companies are, addressing that, but I don't think our policies are helping by making maternity leave longer than they wear. I'm honestly against it. And I think that is something that we need to kind of be vocal about. That's an area that really worries me, that very promising women who join technology, after getting married, there's a little bit of, kind of work-life balance becomes important, and after childbirth, it's a very different situation. So I think that's an elephant in the room that needs to be addressed.
I'm going to take your input, and then, because everybody's starting to walk out for the next, so if there are any questions, we'll take it from the audience.
Sure. So, I mean, at least for us, we had the reverse diversity problem. We had more women than men. And I had to actually step in to make sure that wasn't the case. So today we are almost 60-40 in the organization. But I completely agree with San that, we currently have policies which are supposedly meant to benefit women, but they actually are regressing them a little bit more, especially on the maternity leave, and not necessarily with bigger corporations, but definitely with startups. Because when you have a 6-month maternity leave, paid maternity leave, startups will not be able to afford, right? So I think those are the kind of things that I think from a policy perspective have to definitely be revisited. And there are many more things that can be done on that front.
We've probably got the next debate for our next panel, whether questions from the audience.
I can spot a hand
Will
at the
I
back
lose
there.
my job?
Hi, my name is Simar, and I know we are talking about AI and jobs and women. So we'll just talk about AI, not jobs and women. So let's think 20 years from now, we have an amalgamation of AI, genetic engineering, and massive computational power. And imagine a world when you have self-driving cars and you have robots.
Sorry, can you hear the question? I can't hear the question clearly. Maybe if you can come closer to the mic.
I actually can't even spot the person. She's behind. Oh, okay.
That's where the mic is.
Yeah, no, so please just, maybe if you can just be closer
Oh,
to
there's
the
a mic a little in front too.
Okay, I'll try to be a bit louder. So we have an amalgamation of AI, genetic engineering, and massive computational power in 20 years from now. And imagine a world when you have self-driving cars, you have robots which are your bank tellers, they are delivering pizzas to you, they are building from chips to trucks, and they're also taking care of old people in old age homes. And they're also running in your bodies as organs, right? So I have two questions. How comfortable and prepared are we to share Earth with machines who are self-aware, who can understand emotions, and who can manipulate us? And second, we have developed countries, and we have also people who are still using stone tools in Amazon forest. How do you think about the democratization of AI? Do you think that AI would ever reach them? These are my questions. Thank you.
Are you addressing the question to anybody, or it's free for all?
I would want to know the views of each and every person who is there in the panel. Thank you.
To whom? I mean, is there anyone in the front row who can say again what she said? Come on, somebody must have been listening.
Couldn't get the question. It is very difficult to hear.
No, her question, okay,
can't-
I
got
think,
the-
yes, I
okay,
heard
so
it.
if
So
you can-
what she wants to say is that, so AI is happening. So how comfortable are we to share the earth with the machines? And then we have, demographies who are really not up to date with machines even today. So how are we going to democratize AI so that, it reaches everyone, So I hope I've summarized it right.
I'm here.
Okay.
Anybody in particular you want the question to be?
Why not start with you via Microsoft?
Oh, there you go.
I guess I asked for it.
They are the king of democratizing technology.
They've got
yes.
an opportunity to hang you. Here it is.
So first up, I think let's get our facts. On the planet today, there are far more machines than humans. That's a fact. It's just that the machines that we are talking about of the future may be different from the machines that exist today. And all of us use machines all the time, depending on whatever we do. Second, in terms of comfort, I'll give you a very simple example of where I see the value of AI for the human race. It's a fact in India that for every doctor, there are roughly about 1,700 patients. In the rural part of the country, that number goes up to about 6,000. The second fact is that an average time that a patient gets with a doctor when they go for consultation is 30 seconds to 2 minutes. In that time, the patient comes and shares all the problems, all the ailments, the diagnosis happens, the medication happens, and the patient walks out. The power of artificial intelligence is if the doctor had a lot of that data processing done when the patient walked in and is able to start from the point after the processing, where there is a little bit of guidance already available, and then spend those 2 minutes with that patient truly talking about what will help going forward. So I think I'm just using a case in point as to how we can actually, in our country, democratize AI to really get the services, to get better doctors, better farmers, better teachers, and so on. So to me, the power of AI actually allows India to take care of the problem of capital, land, labor in a very big way.
So one more comment. I think everybody talks about huge amount of data. Everybody knows that, I mean, I carry 3 devices with me, like the many people, so I think you have 3 times more devices on this earth than the human beings. So there is no way that we can live without this device, and the future businesses and all those things will run with you alone. It has to be together along with machines and all those things. The biggest problem I see is the quality of the data which you get it. And I tell you a simple example. I mean, you talked about Google Maps, right? I come from the city to the BIC. The Google Maps showed me this is a route you should not take. It takes you 1.5 hours to reach. But we know this is the fastest route, so we, in that point in time, decided not to follow Google Map and follow our own instinct and follow the same route. We reach faster. So the question is also what kind of data which is coming in, whether it covers all aspects of whatever, diverse views. So you need to make sure that the data which is getting collected is a correct one, and then you can predict in the right way. So what he said about medicine is also true, but it has to have a right data so that you can analyze in the right way and get the output in the right way.
Yeah, that's well said. Did we answer your question?
I think I asked for these. I have one question for Maymygenome. How do you see AI marrying genetic engineering?
Whoa, that's her favorite topic. She'll go on for another one now.
No, I won't. I saw 10 minutes.
Thank you.
No, so I think that's where the real value lies, right? So when you actually map out the genomes, and today what we are giving is just a predisposition and giving you recommendations based on your lifestyle and all of that. But if you think about just a few, maybe few years down the line, you will not just have your information about your genome, which is with the whole genome, like a 3.2 billion base pairs, but you will also have information maybe about your microbiome, your gut microbiome, your nasal microbiome, and all the other bacterial microbiomes. You'll have information about your epigenome. You'll have information about lots of other types of data about you. And if you marry that data with the data that you have today with your ECG, your Fitbits, and your various other things, you will have information, real-time information for you on what you can do in terms of health, right? So that's a huge thing because, you know, at this point, I think they're saying that 50% of sometimes what the doctors say might not be true. 70% of the medicines that you're getting are not correct. So if you can get that information, imagine what that can do for individuals. And if it is cheap enough, and that price is going down, right? So if you're looking at 10 years ago, it was 3-point-something billion, now then it was 200 million, and today you're talking about $1,000. Imagine if it was $10 each or less. That data will become prevalent, and you will not be able to map it, and you'll not be able to make sense out of that data if you didn't have artificial intelligence to sort through it. But the real value is for the consumer, because then you are really empowered with the data, but it has to have the right insights for you to make sense out of it.
Sure. Thank you.
So it's all about the data. Do we have any more questions?
Hi, my name is Neha and I work for Western Digital. When I heard about this session today, and when the moderator asked about one of the scariest technology or anything that you think about, one of the things that came to my mind was the Sophia humanoid robot that just got citizenship in Saudi Arabia last month. And when I heard that news, I was concerned and intrigued in the same way, wherein a machine has been given the same right as any other citizen and has been given a citizenship. Maybe it was just symbolic, but it's there. I would like to hear the views from you guys, and it's a question open to everybody, about what do you think about a move like this, wherein now the machine is not just helping you do your work, they are being offered the rights that you have in a country, and that thing is being celebrated among a masses, and then there is a certain class which thinks it's wrong, it's controversial to give machine a citizenship. What are your thoughts on it?
How do you know you're not a machine?
I hope to believe I'm not a machine.
See, if you think about it, your DNA has so much information today that essentially codes for who you are. You can make facial, you can actually recreate a facial, you can figure out so much about you. So if you think about it, in some form, we are machines of one kind, right? The other is, if you haven't watched Westworld, I strongly recommend that you do, because it's a very interesting series. And I think there lies the big question of even consciousness, right? We are talking about that we have emotions, they don't, but we can love, we can others, and all of that also vanishes away. So when you start thinking about it on that term, from a philosophical point of view, you can either think about yourself as also being a machine, or you can start saying that, that's a reality, you have to deal with it, and there's not much you can do about it.
So let me just, I think you raise a very, very pertinent topic of governance. And that is, if you again go back in human history and you look at the multiple revolutions, industrial revolutions that we've had, it took the human race a lot of time to even start governing manufacturing. Because manufacturing was destroying the planet in many ways, the resources, the environment, and so on. But it's only as late as about 30, 40 years back that the first consciousness about that really came into public realm. And even today, we are still struggling with it to even implement it. The fact is that we are talking about these issues of governance on artificial intelligence and bots even before they are real, in a mass market fashion. So to me, it gives me a lot of confidence that we are asking the right questions today, even before it comes into play. And artificial general intelligence, different from pure play artificial intelligence, a lot of people say is at least a few decades away, where it can truly have the kind of capabilities of the human race. So if we have that kind of time, and if we can apply those principles of governance today, I think we'll have a very good chance not to have the fears that you have realized. And 28th of May, GDPR, that's the first real regulation around privacy is going in play in Europe. So to me, we are framing those rules way ahead of when the problem will come.
Thank you so much.
But I'd still argue that Saudi Arabia doesn't have those rules, and they've gone ahead and already made some machine a citizen, and the implications of that we're still unaware.
Sorry, I couldn't catch that.
You said European regulation. I'm saying that Saudi Arabia doesn't have that regulation, and they've gone ahead and made that machine a citizen. And then what happens? What are the implications of that? I don't know.
So it's an interesting fact. I'm hearing it for the first time. So I don't have a perspective of what the Saudi Arabian government is thinking as they're going down this path. So I can't comment on that. But I would like to take the example of Europe, which is really at the cutting edge of doing this. And that's why I mentioned GDPR. It's an inspiration for me because at least now all geographies around the world, whether they're developed or developing or emerging, can take inspiration from what Europe is already doing. We don't need to rethink this. This is something that's already been constructed, and we can start moving above and beyond that. So that's what I'm very encouraged with.
Do you have any thoughts? No. Okay. So as you see, they're all running away for the next session, and we're pretty tight on time. So I'd like to thank each one of you. Thanks, Anant, for your input, and Anu for coming from Hyderabad, and Dhilip for, I know you got a role change and everything, but you still managed to come, so thank you for that, and congratulations too, because I know it's a bigger role. And I hope it's more influential from our perspective. And San, she's flown in from Dubai, and it was just on one message from me, so thank you, San. We appreciate it. And San was also our first WEQ winner. So she's like someone very special to our hearts.
Part of the family.
And thank you for that.
Sure.
Please do put your hands together and let's give it up for our esteemed panelists out here. Thank you so much for that thought discussion. Before I could let you all exit the stage, Geetha, if I could have you do the honors and give away a small token of appreciation to all our panelists out here. Can we have them brought on stage, please?
Probably this is the only conference where instead of women, we have men bringing in the...
And Kamala, if I could have you join us on stage to do the honors and give away a token of appreciation to the moderator of our panel discussion. One moment, Geetha, if I could have you back on stage. Thank you, Kamala, and thank you to all our esteemed panelists for joining us out here and for that brilliant discussion.